What's the cheapest, stingiest thing you've seen someone do? I was working in a restaurant in Montreal and the staff decided to all have a picnic and a few beers together. We all pitched in to get steaks, salads and drinks. I invited a friend that didn't work with us and he showed up with a potato. Yes, one potato. He drank the beer, ate salad and steak. Oh, and he ate his potato too. Latvia welcomes friend. My brother had an old Fiat 127. The gas dial hadn't worked for a while, so sometimes he would run out of gas. One time he was with my young nephew when it happened again. They pushed it for like half a mile. Arriving at the gas station he realized it was rather more expensive than another station further up the road, so they pushed it for another half mile. If he was really smart he'd just push the car everywhere and never have to pay for gas. I went for a meal with a group of about 6 friends. When it came time to divvy up the bill, one friend said he hadn't got cash on him, but if we all chipped in the cash for our share he would put it on his card. He was also very keen to ensure we all put in a decent tip. In the UK, so tipping is common in a restaurant, but not required. Our friend went up to the bar to pay, but unfortunately for him another member of our party went to the restroom at the same time and was surprised to notice him paying in cash. We pulled him up on this, and it turned out the stingy bastard was using our tips to cover his part of the meal. This chap has forevermore been ribbed as having short arms and deep pockets. He is trusted by no one. Not only cheap but a really sneaky, classless act. Dang. My grandmother, as she didn't own a computer, had to mail in all her bill payments. One month she didn't get her water bill or it was delivered to someone else by accident. Whatever the cause, her next bill was for both that month and the previous month and included a late fee that was less than the cost of a stamp. For the rest of her life she skipped the bill one month and then paid both the next because she saved a few cents by using just one stamp instead of 2. This was a woman who had somewhere around $1 million in the bank when she died. My dad once took a broken fork to the aerospace company he worked for and had a highly skilled welder weld it back together. This was a cheap crap dinner fork. I'm glad I stuck around to read this. This is my fave in the thread. I was at a friend's apartment about 5 years ago for a moving in get together with about 10 others. Halfway through the party, I used the bathroom and when I went to wash my hands, I noticed he had not gotten around to buying hand towels yet. Giving him some slack and understanding it was his first place, I figured I would just grab a few squares of toilet paper and simply dab my hands with that. Not a big deal. But the roll of toilet paper was empty, so I just dried my hands on my pants and let my friend know he needed to replace the roll. After I tell him, this mother sucker walks into the bathroom, grabs what he thought were the cleanest squares of used toilet paper from the trash can and wraps them around the empty roll. I don't know what the heck those squares were used for or what possessed him to do something so unsanitary and absurd, but I didn't end up staying at the party much longer to ask him why. Very easily the cheapest, stingiest, and most disgusting thing I have witnessed in my life. I was really that close to the guy who threw the party and that basically confirmed that I wouldn't be making any attempts to further the friendship. Had a roommate in college do something similar. I bought toilet paper. She used the toilet paper up and refused to buy the next pack. I started using the restroom at my school. The next thing I know she had started using my actual bath towels, hand towels, shower curtain, and socks as her toilet paper because she refused to leave her pig pen to go get more. She was a nightmare. My mom's cousin would invite us over for a barbecue and go around to each person and ask if they want a hamburger or a hot dog. I got the stink eye once for asking for one of each. When it got dark out, her husband would want to do a fireworks show and asked everybody to chip in money for it. They were cheap fireworks too, or to be more accurate, some sparks danced on the ground for a few seconds. One of their dogs was a massive dong when it came to food. We had dessert pastries and right as I was bringing my egg to my mouth, this dong of a dog jumps up onto me and snatches it out of my hand. Because of the whole 1 per person ration, I had no dessert that day. Another time, the dog attempted to eat their younger daughter's hot dog. He didn't actually get it, but several of us had witnessed that the hot dog had been licked. My cousin and her husband said that their daughter could still eat it. She was only 3 years old and wouldn't know the difference. My uncle eventually stepped up, taking the hot dog and throwing it in the trash can, leaving them the options of making one more hot dog, because we all knew there were more in the freezer, or letting their daughter starve because they were too cheap to make extra food. I think they've been less stingy since that incident, but none of us go to their barbecues anymore. I used to work as a waiter for a country club. I had a woman tell me she was done with her plate, so I cleared it off the table. When I returned to ask if they wanted dessert, she asks where are my leftovers. I calmly responded that she had no food left on her plate. Her response, so I wanted you to box up the skin from my baked potatoes so I could give it to my dog. Requested to see the manager. $80 bill completely free of charge. To this day I swear she had it planned the whole time. $80 bill completely free of charge. Are you freaking kidding me? A school friend's dad made her bread sandwiches because he didn't want to waste money on pointless fillings when the bread would swell in your stomach with water. Oh, and that sandwich fillings were a part of the capitalist machine that rules us all. Was going to have a movie night with some friends. This one guy is a complete miser. Told him to bring round some beers and party food. He doesn't bother with any beers. Says he forgot. Just brings around his dinner that he's just bought from Tesco's that he wants to cook, which he does in my kitchen. Of course he drinks the beers that we all supplied. Halfway through the film he ups and leaves, saying he doesn't like the movie. I have that friend. A point is now made when he is there. Beers are left in the middle of the floor. Outright old no when he reaches for one. Satisfaction had all round. In college I lived with 4 other guys and they refused to buy toilet paper. It was disgusting. They would just crap and hop in the shower to wash off but never had toilet paper. Oftentimes if they really needed to poop but didn't want to go through the trouble of showering after, they would have another go get napkins from the McDonald's that was super close to us. I had my own dang toilet paper and wasn't letting them use it up just to never replace it. Did this several times, but one of my roommates I guess was like, frick it, I'll take one for the team. He worked at a gym, so he took a massive roll of toilet paper that goes in their public restrooms. I mean like a 16-inch diameter, but 2.5-inch wide wheel of toilet paper. Cheap but that's college. When I was a teen, a guy who I respected a lot paid me to rake his yard. After we're done, he drives me home and on the way we stop at the local country store to buy a soda and snack. I didn't expect him to pay for me because I had my own money now that I'd just earned raking his yard, so I put my merch on the checkout counter and then he slides his stuff beside mine like he's going to pay, except he didn't. The clerk looks to me since I had money out to pay for it and he looks at me too as if to say, well, pay her. I was confused, but paid for it. He apologized later and I lost respect for him. The 5-6 times in your life when an apology is actually legit, you'll know it. Outside that it's less please forgive me and more you'll forgive me now. My flatmate stole TP from his office when it was his turn to buy. Only he stole one roll and thought that was equivalent of the 16 pack the rest of us buy. Seriously, you don't have to buy that often and it's like $2-3 for 16. Went out to dinner. Check came in. Let's say it was a total of $40 for 4 people. 3 of us put in $12 each for our parts and tips. The 4th person looked at the cash we put down, counted it, and put in $4. I hope you didn't let him get away with it. My friend's dad would abuse Walmart's return policy. He would do things like get a gallon of milk, drink most of it, fill it back up with water, and take it back to exchange it. I have a friend who used to work there. He said that people return crap there like it's a sport. I've heard people admit they will go to Costco for lunch and just walk around to every sample table getting little free bites until they're full. That weird considering Costco sells actual lunch food at their food court for like $2. They're giant portions too. A family friend of mine once told his parents that he was sharing his school lunches with a classmate and that he was worried about this classmate's financial situation. His parents were concerned too. They met with the principal. Eventually they asked their child which classmate, specifically, was in possible financial trouble. Redacted. Pritzker, one of the wealthiest families in the country. Billionaires. We think he'll probably be okay. Can still be neglectful and send the kid without food to school. I'm sure there's much worse than this, but my boss is a millionaire. He owns a lot of companies. is well known in his industry and is generally a baller. He splurges on us if we've done well, always picks up the tab if we're out, doesn't put a spend cap on things like Christmas parties. But one time I had to fly from the UK to America. To save money I had to get 4 flights instead of 1 direct one. My journey took 24 hours instead of 11. And I had to do 3 days work in the US literally 7 hours after I landed. Jet lag and all. If that wasn't annoying enough, the flight was booked to take off at 9 AM. That meant getting to the airport at 6 AM. I don't live anywhere near an airport and had to travel south to London, then get across London, and then travel south for another hour to the airport. The whole journey could have been done in 3 hours at a push. Due to the time of day public transport was limited, there was one train I could get that would have allowed me to make it. Considering there would have been 6 stages to my journey, I didn't want to risk any delays that would mean me missing my flight. An old neighbor of mine was a taxi driver. I called him up, got mates rates on a journey, the taxi costing a whole £10 more than my public transport journey would have done but taking less than a third of the time. And he threw something of a fit in front of the entire office about this, about how it was lazy, about how there was ways I could do it on public transport that would be cheaper. He didn't understand that not living in London means I'm limited to 1 train per hour. There's number 24-hour buses. If the train doesn't show up or is late, that's it. After a while he calmed down and said it was fine to get the taxi if I didn't take any luggage. He wanted me to travel with just hand luggage. It wouldn't have been the end of the world if I didn't have to carry about 50 brochures, a ton of contracts and loads of other crap which filled half a normal suitcase. He also said I could just wear my suit on the plane, the same suit I was going to wear for the next 3 days to save space. I was traveling for over 24 hours each way and going to the West Coast in peak summertime where temps were 45 degrees Celsius during the day. It was so weird to see such a generous man being so uptight about what was only around £50 worth of extra costs to make the experience remotely bearable. A guy we were sort of friends with at university was the worst. He used to carry around a calculator and use it to calculate the difference between the cheapest beers per ml. One time we all chipped in £3 for a shot that was £2.97 and he demanded his 3p change, which the guy who bought it had given to the bartender as a tip. We all pelted pennies at him throughout the night and he picked every single one up. One time a bunch of us were making fajitas together and 2 of us didn't want to have the steak strips, which the guy insisted on getting because they were cheaper, so we bought chicken instead. This guy ate all the chicken and no steak. One night of pre-drinking he came to the party and said he didn't have any booze. We reminded him that the supermarket next door was open for another hour and he said he'd go in a few minutes. Guess what? He waited an hour and then tried to get booze of the rest of us. I gave him 1 beer and then saw him drinking out of my glass when he thought I wasn't looking. The same night as the beer incident, the queue for the bar was really long, so we gave him money to get drinks. I gave him £2 for my 2 drinks and he came back and said they were £3 so I owed him a quid. Out of spite, I said I had no change. The next morning at 9 AM, he turns up at my door, 45 minutes away from where he lived. He had no other reason to visit either, and says that he'd written in his notebook that I owed him a quid and asked me to pay up. This guy was super broke once, so a friend gave him 10 packs of instant noodles to keep him going until he got his student loan. Fine. 2 weeks later the friend who gave him the noodles was visiting and said, "Oh, I'm skinned mate. Do you mind if I have those 2 packs of noodles you have left over?" Stingy guy refuses of course and had hidden them when we went back to his room later in the day. I don't know why we hung around with this guy. To be honest I think he just turned up to things without an invite. I did get my revenge when he picked up some weed for me and I didn't give him the money. He badgered me about it every day for about 2 weeks and I told him he'd get the money when I got my copy of Series 1 of The Thick of It back, which he'd borrowed and not returned 2 years before. He barely spoke to me since. Dang. Talk about biting the hand that feeds you. I meet with 3 buddies at a very nice bar restaurant. Let's call them Bob, John, and Travis. John has been going to this place for years, and the owner is an extremely close friend of his. Because of this, we get calm drinks all night, not just beers, but scotch, vodka, etc etc etc. Maybe $100 worth of free booze between us. Great times, right? Number. Why? Because Bob is a cheap, bloody, smelly little C. As we're drinking our asses off free of charge, we're also ordering food to make up for it. A pasta, chicken, fish, the works. But Bob isn't happy because Bob doesn't want to pay for anything. So what does Bob do? He asks for the special appetizer for $10, but asks the owner to make it dinner sized. The owner responds, "Do you mean that you want the dinner instead of the appetizer?" Done. Alright. So we pig the frick out. We drink our asses off. Bob's wasted. We wait and wait and wait for Bob to eat a table-sized platter all by himself. Frick you, Bob. Then we get the bill. As I've noted above, it's about $100 less than it should have been, and we're all thrilled. Well, all of us except for Bob, because Bob's meal is $19 instead of $10. As John reminds him that he drank his weight in free liquor and begs him not to make a scene, Bob proceeds to go up to the owner behind the bar and throw a freaking crap fit about the $9 he should have saved on his special dinner-sized appetizer. The owner is stunned. John is furious. Travis hates confrontation, so Travis slinks out the door. "I'm just a wallflower." Bob slams his fist on the counter. Bob points at the chalkboard. Bob whines and whines and whines that he doesn't have the money to pay for the extra $9, though he works a really freaking cushy job and eats out 3 times a day. He calls the owner names. He cries. He actually cries. Then he sits his bloated butt down, pitches in $10, and refuses to tip. And he smiles. The C is freaking smiling. And that sets John off. John flips his freaking crap, calls Bob every name in the book, and makes a go at Emmy for trying to cover Bob just to get us the heck out of this place. He gets up on his chair. He throws handfuls of money in Bob's face like the guy's some fat, hairy Russian stripper. Women are stunned. The owner is laughing. Travis is looking in the window, and I'm stuck with Bob as John finally pays the bill, tips his friend $100, and stomps outside, sending Travis flailing down the street. Bob looks at me. I look back at him. His only reaction? What a Jew. Am I right? I'll leave Bob at the table, alone. We don't eat with Bob anymore. We don't eat with Bob anymore. I wouldn't do anything with that guy anymore. That's reason enough to wipe his number and try to forget I ever met him. Well, my roommate, despite often bragging about how much money he has saved up and buying weed every other day, so he's clearly got plenty to spend. 1. Uses my soaps and my toothpaste. 2. Picks my used razors out of the trash can and uses them on himself. 3. When it's his turn to buy toilet paper, he buys a 4-pack of the smallest, shittiest quality TP he can find. I'm pretty sure he'd buy 1 roll at a time if he could. 4. Used my shampoo and tried to hide it by putting water in it back up to full. 5. When so began his brewing hobby, roommate was all for helping out in exchange for beer, until he realized he was expected to chip in and help with the process. That partnership ended real quick. 6. Broke the toaster trying to cook hash browns in it, and I don't mean the oval shaped ones. Tried to buy one at a crappy thrift shop and complained he had to buy a brand new one at full price. A whopping $30. Real winner, he is. Tell him you have hepatitis. My father gets free boxes at the post office. Free as in you're supposed to fill it, bring back, and pay to ship it. He skips that part and just takes the priority mailboxes home. Didn't know about his routine until around Valentine's Day when we were running errands and he said he had to stop to get a free gift box for my mom. Sometimes he'll grab a couple of the cushy bubble envelopes to roll up and use as filler to keep the gift safe. My mom is the opposite, always buys boxes, wrap, tissue paper, ribbon, tags, so at least one of them supports the gift decor industry. Sorry USPS. The bubble ones actually aren't free, at least not here. Tell him to be careful or they might get angry at him about that. The boxes are okay to take, but the bubbled envelopes that I'm thinking of usually cost like $1.50 and you pay for it at the counter once you've put something in it. So I work at a grocery store, and every year we have a donation competition for muscular dystrophy. We have people sign and buy shamrocks that go on the walls, and we have a small cup for change donations. One day, a lady comes in, very rude, resting B face, Everything's a problem. You get it? So as I was checking her out, she digs through her wallet looking for a $100 bill. The order was $53.59. She found one, and instead of taking change, she goes, looks like there is 59 cents in here, and digs out 59 cents from the donation cup. I wanted to say something, but she would have made a scene. Instead, I just threw $1 into the cup. There's a big butt fishing tournament ever summer near me, and the people that set it up go to Home Depot and buy like $2,000 worth of flowers and then just return them. I didn't know you could return flowers. Worked at Wendy's one summer when I was in high school. This one guy would come in and order a large size of fries, dump half of the fries in a bag and come back and say that he wanted fresh fries and that these ones tasted too stale. I only caught what he was doing because I had noticed that one of the times he complained the fries had just come out of the fryer. Hang out with a group of friends around 6-7 people, and we decided to chip in for a large meal except for one guy. He said he's not that hungry because he just ate. When the meal arrived, we all started eating and chatting at the same time, and that guy just kept eating and eating, and once he's done he pretended he got a call and left us. That dude doesn't get the invite next time. My friend went to stay with a new boyfriend who she met on Ahamoni. They had met a few times before, talked on the phone loads, but hadn't spent that much time together. On her first night there, he poured them each a glass of red wine. She was exhausted and only drank half of her glass before she was ready to go to bed. He put the glass with the remaining wine in the refrigerator. The next morning with breakfast he pulled the glass out of the refrigerator. She didn't touch it. Again he put it back in the refrigerator. Again that night for dinner, he pulled the glass out and ended up putting it back in the refrigerator. At this point, she wasn't drinking it on principle. The next night they went to a function at a hotel. She did drink a glass of wine there, and he tipped $1 to the bartender. When they got home, he pulled up QuickBooks and entered the $1 into his budget. She left the next day. Yep, he pulled out the glass of wine as she was packing to go. She finally snatched the glass and downed it in one giant gulp. She said it was disgusting. That's the last time they ever saw each other. After dinner, a friend of my parents came up to my dad in a parking lot with a $10 bill and said, "Here you go. You left way too big of a tip." Dinner was around $85, so my dad left $15. Mr. Cheapers couldn't stomach someone leaving a tip of over a few dollars, no matter the size of the bill. I've never seen my father so angry. Also, I had a notoriously cheap college roommate. I invited him to a minor league baseball game with some friends. My buddy noted that he'd been missing for probably 15-20 minutes. We eventually found him walking around polishing off the last sips left in abandoned beer cups. He also refused to buy soap for in the shower, meaning he only rinsed when he showered, and stunk all the time. Also, I once walked in on him spraying Febreze on a shirt. I asked if he had a date or something and he said that he was doing laundry, since the bottle said it was antimicrobial, further explaining the stink. My dad and his friend went grocery shopping, and they were filling their grocery carts full of all kinds of stuff. Then, they decided to drink the free coffee from the coffee machine. After they were done, they put all the groceries back where they belonged and left without buying anything. My dad said he wouldn't mind actually buying coffee at an actual cafe, but he said the coffee at the grocery store tasted better, probably because it was free. This is not a rare thing that they do, by the way. My own mother did this one and my family was well enough off that this was completely unnecessary. Our house and trees got TP'd, toilet papered. One night back when my sister was in high school, we had a big yard and lots of trees, so there really was toilet paper all over the place. Whoever did it spent a fair amount of time going a thorough job. A few days later I happened to go into my mother's bathroom in the basement and find lots of plastic bags stuffed with crumpled up toilet paper. I asked my mom about this and she told me she could just not bring herself to throw away all that perfectly good toilet paper. My mom is not a hoarder and has no problem throwing out things she has no use for, but I guess she really wanted to save some cash on TP. I went to somewhere in Asia on a site bug that made the whole ticket cost only $100. $100. That is right. It was supposed to cost $2,000. $2,000. On the return flight, It stopped in a major town in my country, and from there I had to take a return flight back home. Problem was that I made a mistake of booking that regional flight before the international plane arrived. However, on the return international flight there was a delay that made the plane arrive 1 hour or more later, and that made a lot of people upset because they lost the time for their other flight. I joined the crowd, putting on a fake sad face. Now my plane had departed more than 10 hours before. My mistake for booking so early, but I claimed it was the delay that made me miss my flight. They paid for every rescheduled flight, including mine, because the rescheduled regional flight to my town was late at night. They also gave me a free $50 lunch on the airport. Multi-billion-dollar company. I changed the way I thought about big companies. Some of them care a lot about their customers, and I always think of that flight company first when buying an international flight. TL. Doctor. Almost free international flight. My boyfriend was a waiter, and he told this story to me. Dude and his GF come into the restaurant asking if they're hiring. They fill out applications and decide to eat dinner while they're there. Boyfriend tells him the specials. Dude asks the difference between a sandwich and a meal. Boyfriend says a meal comes with more but it costs $12 instead of $6. Dude scoffs and acts like no one in their right mind would pay the $12. Dude then orders water with extra lemon. Boyfriend brings him 2 lemons. Dude asks for more. When the time comes for the check, boyfriend can clearly see from the register this was a very small, mom and pop type restaurant, that the dude has a bunch of cash in his wallet, like multiple $20s. Yet, the dude asks his GF to pay the bill because he doesn't have any money. After my boyfriend told me the story, I asked if there were empty sugar packets on the table. Boyfriend said yes, but was confused. I had to explain to him that the dude made his own lemonade but only paid for water. Boyfriend died laughing. RIP. If you are new to the channel, you can subscribe. I publish new videos every day. Until then, check another video. Bye for now.